Hey guys, tonight we're going to spend some quiet, dreamy time with a lonely giant who had a very specific craving. He didn't want gold, or fame, or revenge, just wanted a pet. But not a puppy, or even a giant snail. No, he wanted a whole island as a pet. To cuddle, maybe? Who knows? Greek mythology can be like a fever dream. If that fever was caused by drinking too much diluted wine, you might not know it yet, but this story is going to include aquatic fashion choices, dramatic sibling rivalries among gods, and a surprising number of seagulls. You definitely wouldn't survive as a lonely giant in the middle of the Sino Wi-Fi. No snack runs, and worst of all, no reality TV. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments what time it is where you're rewatching and which part of the world your cozy blanket resides in tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You walk across the sea like it's a soft, trembling carpet. The waves roll gently beneath your feet, and in the distance, a massive figure is sitting cross-legged on a jagged outcrop rising from the Aegean. He's doing absolutely nothing, just sitting there. That's Porphyrion, not to be confused with a luxury espresso blend. He's one of the last great giants, still wandering the outer edges of myth. You can hear his breathing, heavy like a seasonal wind brushing against mountain cliffs. There's no one around to talk to, no one to tease, no one to play seagull toss with. This giant, born of earth and the blood of Uranus, was meant to wreak havoc, but instead, Porphyrion collects seashells and naps in a hammock made of kelp. Life, as always, had other plans. You watch him pick up a chunk of worn coral and start sketching on the sea's surface like he's drawing a secret blueprint. Not of war, not of Olympus invasion routes, but of a tiny island with trees and rocks, and what looks suspiciously like a little cliff shaped like a smiling nose. You know, he mutters, not turning around, but somehow speaking directly to you as if you'd been there all morning. Maybe if I had my own island, I'd name it Tootsie. You try very hard not to laugh, but it's difficult. A lonely giant, taller than 3 whales stacked on top of each other, wanting to adopt an island as a pet. People adopt cats. He wants a pet lamb. He goes on, telling you that ever since humans started building ports, they've been raising landing to it, stacking stones, building wave barriers. Some even created artificial islands for rituals or to guard trade routes. If they can do it, he says, surely a bored old giant like me can do it too. Right? The ocean breeze shifts slightly. A lone seagull swoops above your head and lets out a squawk that sounds suspiciously like meh. You're not sure if that's encouragement or judgment. Porphyrion lowers his head, one finger as thick as a watchtower, stirring the surf like someone testing soup. I'll start with rocks, he declares, then trees, then birds, and if I'm lucky, maybe a few crabs. You nod solemnly. Obviously, raising a pet island will take several phases. As he talks, you notice a massive seaweed-woven satchel slung behind his back. Inside, a strange collection of trinkets, a dried starfish, a tiny porcelain goat, a chipped cup carved with a crying Medusa, all, apparently, toys for his future pet. And for a moment, you feel warm. Not teacup warm, but the kind of warm you feel when you see someone still holding on to hope, even when the world seems to have let them drift out of myth. Then he turns to you, eyes like twin moons. Do you think Poseidon will say yes? You open your mouth, but before you can answer, He stands, sending a wave rolling far enough to capsize a fishing boat somewhere near the sea. I'm going to ask him if anyone understands island keeping. It's the king of the sea. You sigh. Clearly, sleep is not happening anytime soon. As you both descend into the depths toward Poseidon's underwater realm, you suggest Pebble-chan, and he nearly chokes on seawater. Historians still debate whether Porphyrion actually fought the gods in the legendary Gigantamachi, or whether he quietly ducked out to go build a model island, while his siblings got thunderbolted into oblivion. No one really knows. Maybe he's just been playing hide-and-seek with history for the last 2,000 years. But one thing is clear. This guy is seriously, deeply, epically lonely. And maybe, if you'd lived as long as he had, you'd want a glowing, tail-wagging island too. The story doesn't stop here. There's still the matter of Poseidon, who's not exactly known for being chill, and whose underwater taste in interior design is dramatic, to say the least. But that's a tale for the next part. You dive with Porphyrion beneath the surface, the sea parting like a soft curtain. Salt water hums against your ears, but instead of a dull pressure, it is oddly melodic-like. The ocean itself is humming a lullaby no one has heard in centuries. The deeper you go, the darker it gets. But there's a glowing path made of bioluminescent jellyfish, all politely scooting out of the way as the giant trudges past. Poseidon's realm is less a palace and more a sprawling underwater suburb with flair. Everything here glitters. Shell-encrusted towers stretch into the abyss. A coral amphitheater glows with eerie blue light. And to your left ears, that is absolutely a seahorse valet station. The Trident decor is a bit much, like someone gave a frat boy an unlimited shell budget. Porphyrion clears his throat, which sounds like a small earthquake. Poseidon, he bellows, I would like a pet. It echoes across miles. A dolphin faints. Out of a kelch archway swims the sea god himself, bare, dripping attitude, and wearing what looks suspiciously like a belt made of squids. He looks annoyed, but that might just be his face. You again? Poseidon says, waving away a chorus of obedient sea turtles. Last time you asked for a cease. The time before that, you tried to bottle my whirlpools. Porphyrion shrugs. I get bored. Now, here's where it gets weird, ears. Even weirder than it already is. Because apparently, in this version of Greek lore, new islands are grown from enchanted seeds. Poseidon keeps a secret garden of them in his vault, right next to the backup hippocampus barn and a collection of angry bottled storms labeled for later. No one's sure if the seeds are real, or metaphorical, or both. Historians still argue whether this whole myth is symbolic of land accretion after volcanic activity, or just a very old bedtime story Poseidon made up to get rid of giants politely. But Porphyrion doesn't care. Yes, already clapping his enormous hands and doing a little dance that looks like a shipwreck trying to do the Before you know it, you're whisked into the first trial. The Plains of Softness. You arrive in a sunken meadow filled with seagrass that's suspiciously fluffy. The island must be comforting, Poseidon says, appearing from a swirling whirlpool like a dramatic sea stage manager. Can you craft ground that feels like a nap? Porphyrion kneels and begins gathering sand, coral dust, and the soft underfeathers of migratory pelicans. You help by pointing out which pieces of sponge feel most like a good mattress. Honestly, it's more relaxing than any interior decorating show you've ever watched. By the end of the day, you're sitting on a patch of future island ground so comfy, a passing eel lies down and starts snoring. Trial 1. Passed. You rest that night in a bubble of warm water. Porphyrion hums a lullaby that's mostly just low whale noises, and for a moment you feel like this could actually work. Maybe he'll get his island. Maybe you'll get to name a tiny volcano. Still, a question hangs in the salty air. Why is Poseidon going along with this? Maybe he's bored, too. Maybe after centuries of dealing with dramatic demigods and shipwrecks, a giant raising an island like a pet rock feels oddly refreshing. Or maybe, just maybe, Poseidon has his own reasons, ones you haven't quite seen yet. Either way, you drift into sleep surrounded by glowing fish and dreams of islands that purr when hugged. And in the distance, Poseidon smiles to himself and murmurs, "Let's see if he survives the next one." The Trial of Echoes. The next morning, or whatever counts as morning in the murky underwater realm, you wake up to the sound of Porphyrion humming. It's low and rumbly, like someone rolling a giant marble across the floor of an abandoned temple. You crack one eye open, and there he is, braiding seaweed with surprising finesse, as if preparing for a particularly elegant oceanic birthday party. You stretch inside your bubble of breathable water. It doesn't pop, thankfully. Poseidon's magic is weirdly stable for a guy who once turned someone into a dolphin because they sneezed during his poetry reading. Porphyrion claps his giant hands and announces, "It's time, the Trial of Echoes." He says it with the gravity of a mythic prophecy, but with the enthusiasm of someone about to visit a pottery class. You follow him through a narrow trench, flanked by stone faces carved into the cliffs, mouths wide open, as if perpetually the air hums with voices, though no one's talking. It's unsettling, like being surrounded by 1,000 people all whispering your name, but never quite clearly. "This place," Porphyrion mutters, "used to be where sirens trained their echoes, before they got all sing-your-sailors-to-doom. Single quotes about it." He makes air quotes with his pinky fingers, which are each the size of a wagon. Poseidon appears again, swirling up from a vent in the seabed like his part dance number, part plumbing accident. "Trial 2, he says. "You must teach your island to speak." Porphyrion frowns. "Islands don't talk." "Exactly," Poseidon says, smugly. "But the good ones, they listen." You blink. It sounds like he's quoting a deep-sea self-help book. The trial begins. You're ushered into a dome of acoustics so perfect, even your thoughts start to echo. Porphyrion has to whisper, which for him is like thunder wearing a cardigan. The goal, Poseidon explains, is to create a soul chamber, a space that holds sound, history, and memory, a core for the future island. Think of it as its emotional support cave. Porphyrion takes it seriously. He starts gathering resonant stones, volcanic glass that hums when tapped, coral bones that vibrate with passing whale songs. You help by arranging tiny seashells into spiral patterns, each one tuned to a different pitch when water flows over it. It's a weirdly soothing process, like musical gardening. As you work, Porphyrion tells you stories he has heard on the winds, of Cycladic traders who built shrines to the wind gods, using porous stone, so their prayers would echo even when no one was around. Of a forgotten island where the cliffs would repeat your name if you shouted it. Done something about the shape of the bay, catching sound just right. Historians still debate whether these places existed or if they were metaphors for the way memory clings to geography. But down here, surrounded by singing stone, it feels possible. It feels real. At one point, Porphyrion tests the chamber by humming a note, just a single, low. The walls pick it up and hum back, softer, gentler, like the sea replying in kind. You both sit in silence for a long moment. Then, a whisper. "Hello?" You look around. No one's there. Porphyrion looks nervous. "Did the island say that?" he asks. You shake your head. "That was definitely a ghost echo." Poseidon, who has been lounging dramatically on a giant clam, shrugs. Close enough. Trial passed. You both cheer silently, partly from joy, partly because sound still echoes weirdly, and neither of you wants to accidentally summon an ancient seabird by yelling. Later, as you swim away from the Chamber of Echoes, Porphyrion looks thoughtful. I want my island to remember good things, he says. Laughter, rain, the sound of whales playing tag. You tell him you think that's beautiful. He says you're not bad for a tiny water mammal. The two of you float in companionable silence, surrounded by soft bubbles rising toward whatever sky exists above the sea. You're beginning to suspect this quest isn't just about making a petitus about creating something that loves, and listens, and echoes back warmth. But before you can ask more, a current picks you up like a gentle slap and sweeps you into the next phase. You land in a cold, glowing cavern where time feels stuck. Water doesn't move here. Light hovers like it forgot how to fade. Porphyrion lands beside you with a wet thud. Poseidon is already there, seated on a rock throne shaped like a spiral shell. Trial 3, he says, as if announcing dinner. The memory of storms. You groan. Porphyrion grins. This is going to be interesting. You're not quite sure how you've ended up in the eye of a storm when you're still technically underwater. But here we are. The cavern pulses with pressure. The walls aren't stone anymore, they're made of swirling, frozen currents, like someone bottled a hurricane mid-sneeze. Even light struggles here. It moves in slow waves, casting shadows that flicker twice before they disappear. Poseidon paces before you, his trident leaving trails of blue electricity behind with each step. The third trial, he says, clearly enjoying the sound of his own myth, is about memory. Not yours, not mine, the island's. Porphyrion blinks slowly. You want me to give it trauma? Poseidon waves dismissively. Drama, not trauma. There's a difference. You float gently in place, once again trying to be as inconspicuous as possible. The current keeps nudging you into coral shelves, as if the sea itself wants you to get involved. You pat it politely and whisper, "Please stop." Poseidon continues. A real island, a meaningful one, must carry the memory of storms. It needs rage and rain and the silence after thunder. That's what gives it shape. You can't cuddle a pet if it doesn't know what it survived. Porphyrion scratches his chin, which sends a small school of fish spiraling off in panic. So, we need to build a storm. Poseidon smiles. No, you need to remember one. And with that, the trial begins. The cavern transforms around you, walls dissolving into moving water, and suddenly you're standing on the deck of an ancient trireme. It creaks beneath your feet. Wind howls above. Rain lashes sideways. He's enormous on the horizon, walking through the storm like it's knee-deep. You're in a memory, Poseidon's memory, perhaps, or one from the sea itself. It's not clear. Everything smells of salt and wet wood, and your tunic is very dramatically soaked. Focus. Poseidon's voice rumbles from the clouds. Find the moment the storm became more than weather. That's what you give to the island. Porphyrion closes his eyes. You watch his massive brow furrow like a mountain range preparing for an emotional moment. He begins to hum low, broken, like the sound of distant thunder arguing with itself. The sky above flickers. A memory is forming. You're swept into it. It's long ago, before any humans drew maps, when Porphyrion was just a young, slightly smaller mountain of a giant. He was adrift on a makeshift raft made from uprooted pine trees, bobbing across the open sea. A storm came, not the angry kind, but a sad, slow one, like the sky was grieving. The waves didn't crash. They swelled like breathing. The lightning didn't strike. It lit the sky as if searching for something, and the wind sang not screamed a song in no language, but full of feeling. That night Porphyrion didn't fight the storm. He listened to it. He learned that not all storms destroy, some just want to be witnessed. Back in the trial cavern, the memory shimmers around you, the rain turning to mist. A gentle thunder rolls, and then fades. Poseidon speaks from somewhere above. You've given the island a heart. Now it knows how to weep and survive. Porphyrion nods. Good. Then it'll understand me. You glance at him. He shrugs. Only during tragic dolphin movies, or when I stubbed my toe on a moon rock. You both laughed softly, echoing through the chamber. Another current lifts you gently, like an exhale from the ocean itself. You're carried through a tunnel of jellyfish lanterns, their tendrils brushing your skin like silk. It's quiet now, peaceful. Even Poseidon doesn't follow. When you emerge, you're in a twilight reef. The sky, if you can call it that, has turned a deep lavender. Porphyrion floats beside you, thoughtful. I think the island's going to be quiet, he says. Not lonely, just ... still. You nod. That kind of place matters. He smiles. It will have a rock shaped like a spoon. You blink. On purpose, maybe. The two of you drift along the reef's edge. Somewhere, a school of phosphorescent minnows forms the shape of a spiral and then scatters. Far off, a whale calls to another. The sound passes through your bones like a lullaby that never needed words. And then, without warning, the reef parts. There, nestled among the coral, is a single glowing pod. It's shaped like a seed, smooth, swirling, and pulsing gently, like it has a heartbeat. Porphyrion gasps. That's it. The island seed. You reach for it. But before your fingers touch, a new presence arrives. Not Poseidon, but someone older, stranger. A figure rises from the reef floor, draped in sea silk and silence. Porphyrion steps back. Who ... is that? The figure doesn't speak, but in your mind, a whisper forms. Only the patient may plant, and only the kind may keep. You feel a chill, not fear, but reverence. This next trial, you realize, won't be about strength or sound or storm. It will be about stillness. The trial of waiting has begun. The trial of waiting is not a trial in the way you might expect. No battles, no riddles, no elaborate, ocean-themed escape rooms. Just ... time and silence. And you, floating in the slowest current imaginable, alongside a giant who can't stop. Porphyrion is trying his best. He really is. He sits cross-legged on a kelp mat he wove himself, hands folded, eyes squeezed shut in the universal posture of someone trying very hard to look serene. Every few minutes he opens one eye to peek at the glowing island seed, still nestled in its reef cradle like a pearl with a heartbeat. Has it moved? He whispers. No. You whisper back. A pause. What about now? You give him a look. Porphyrion sighs, loud enough to scare a crab off a rock ledge. This is harder than I thought. I'm a giant. I was made for smashing and stomping and braiding seaweed into decorative garlands. Not ... waiting. You try to soothe him. Maybe it's less about waiting and more about trusting. The seed will know when it's time. He squints at it. It looks like a sleeping jelly bean. You both go quiet again. Around you, the reef buzzes with gentle life. Tiny fish darting through coral tunnels. Anemones waving like lazy flamenco dancers. A seahorse couple floating by as if on a romantic stroll. It's like watching an aquarium screensaver, but with salt in your nose. As hours pass, at least, you think they're hours, you begin to notice something. The seed glows a little warmer every time Porphyrion relaxes. When he chuckles softly at a fish doing a backflip, it pulses brighter. When he stops checking on it every 5 seconds, the glow steadies. Eventually, Porphyrion figures it out too. It responds to calm, he says. Amazed, it grows on peace. You smile. Well, that explains why it didn't sprout during your 5-minute interpretive kelp dance earlier. He snorts, which creates a small localized tsunami in a tide pool nearby. From then on, Porphyrion focuses not on forcing the seed, but on being still. He hums sea lullabies, he listens to the reef. He tells you a long, meandering story about the time he tried to start a coral bakery, and the seed listens. One day though, no sun rises or sets. To mark the time you notice a change, a tiny tendril extends from the pod, curling toward Porphyrion's voice. Like it's reaching, like it's choosing. The mysterious silk-robed figure from before appears again, but this time closer, less shadowy. Their eyes, vast and unreadable, meet yours. The voice returns in your mind. Now you know. An island is not built. It is before. Porphyrion breathes out, then ... It's ready. The figure nods, slow as a glacier learning to dance. The reef around you begins to hum, soft and deep, like the ocean itself is clearing its throat politely. Coral retracts, fish scatter, and the seed rises gently, reverently into Porphyrion's waiting hands. He holds it like a dream made solid, and for a moment you swear you see tiny silhouettes inside it. Trees, hills, maybe even a waterfall shaped like a spiral. It's beginning already. Then, in the least dramatic exit possible, the silk figure simply ... dissolves. Like steam. No final message, just gone. Porphyrion wipes a tear from one eye. Or maybe it's just a very sweaty eyeball. I'm going to be a dad, he says, voice trembling. You blink. A dad? To an island, he clarifies. I'll teach it tide schedules, how to shelter birds, when to bloom wildflowers, after rain, ... All the important stuff. The seed, now glowing with an inner dawn, pulses once, as if in agreement. As you begin your ascent back toward the surface or whatever counts as up in Poseidon's watery funhousey, glance back at the reef one last time. It's empty now. Quiet. Peaceful. The trial is complete. But even as you float away, you realize this one left a mark. Not on the world, but on his quieter, gentler, and his eyes hold a kind of softness you hadn't seen before. I think, he says after a while, this island might want a name. You smile. Any ideas? He ponders, then grins. Maybe Snuggle Rock. You choke. We'll workshop it. And with that, the two of you drift into the next challenge, one involving shape, land, and, if Poseidon has anything to say about it, possibly an argument with a sea turtle over zoning rights.